Here we go, all the way, gotta be, rough and tough, bo diddly, have you heard?
Bo diddly, have you heard?
We're gonna jump from a big iron bird.
We're gonna jump from a big iron bird.
Stand up, hook up, shuffle to the door.
Stand up, hook up, shuffle to the door.
And you leap right out and count to 4.
Leap right out and count to 4.
If my main don't open wide,
if my main don't open wide,
I got a reserve by my side.
I got a reserve by my side. Hey!
Here we go, all the way, gotta be, rough and tough.
Hi, my name is Gil Gilleland. I'm a native son of North Carolina. I grew up in Hickory, North Carolina, in Catawba County. My parents were probably on the poor side, I would say. My dad provided well for us. My mother was a homemaker. My stepmother was a homemaker for most of her adult life, but they provided well for us to get by, get the things that we needed. When I was in my first year of college, after my first year, I decided to skip the fall semester because I had a good summer job, and I was one of those fortunate sons who received his draft notice after I made that decision, and entered the Army in November of 1971 as a private, rose through the non-commissioned officer ranks to staff sergeant, was fortunate enough to be selected for officer candidate school, completed my degree, and rose through the officer ranks to full colonel. I retired from active duty in December of 2004 and was immediately selected as a member of the Defense Department's Senior Executive Service. And I served in that capacity for 5 years and retired a second time and did a little consulting with the Centers for Disease Control for about a year, and had a great career. My wife Tracy retired shortly after I did, and we kind of drew up a matrix like a lot of people did when we were looking and trying to decide where to retire to, and we kept coming back home. Tracy's from this area as well, so we moved back to Western North Carolina to be near family. We have a house at Holden Beach, North Carolina, and grandkids in Atlanta, so we're kind of halfway in between, and we knew if we lived on the lake and had a beach house, we could always entice our grandkids to come and visit us. But I'm very proud of my background, having been raised in North Carolina and returning back to my home state. You know, North Carolina is touted as the most military-friendly state in the country, and I can tell you, based on my travels and my research and my 39 years of service, that is definitely the case. The state does everything that it can for veterans, but we kind of saw a gap where there was something missing, and that's where we started the St. Michael's All Airborne chapter. I'm the founder of the chapter. I'm also the chapter chairman, and I'm proud of what we do. We have a great team of board members. Our vice chairman is Eric Miller, who's a deputy sheriff in Catawba County. Our secretary is Miguel Santiago, who is a retired Army First Sergeant, paratrooper, master blaster, master paratrooper, and he's also recently retired from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. Our treasurer is David Osorio, who also just recently retired from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. I believe he was a homicide detective, and he was also served in the 82nd Airborne Division. I believe he was in the 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment. Our chapter chaplain is Matt Levi, who was a retired warrant officer who flew helicopters in the 82nd Airborne Division for the 1st 17th Cav. And our sergeant at arms is Craig Wilkes, who also served as a paratrooper and is a current member of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. We have a lot of law enforcement officers. A lot of paratroopers get out and still want to serve their country and kind of do something exciting in the community, and a lot of them turn to law enforcement, which is a very honorable profession. But we have a great chapter that does a lot of things. We meet every other month somewhere in Western North Carolina, and if you'd like to join us, whether you're a paratrooper or not, we'd love to have you come to one of our meetings. And if you want to contact me, I'm on social media. We have a website. Contact me and I'll tell you, put you on our email distribution list and tell you when to come to the meetings. The St. Michael's All Airborne chapter was formed 6 years ago, right after my wife and I retired and returned to Western North Carolina. There are a lot of great organizations, veterans organizations in Western North Carolina, but having spent a lot of time in the 82nd Airborne Division, jumping out of perfectly good airplanes, we noticed that there was no chapter in Western North Carolina. So we decided to start the St. Michael's All Airborne chapter. And my passion since I retired from the military and in the military was helping soldiers and their families. So we decided to name it the St. Michael's All Airborne chapter because St. Michael is the patron saint of paratroopers. St. Michael looks after paratroopers and their families, and especially when they're in combat or doing a jump or something like that, but also when they're off duty and doing all the things that military families do. So we saw a need there, and the need that I really saw was that the Veterans Administration, which does a great job, they've improved tremendously over the years, sometimes they lag behind the needs of the veteran. And what we saw was a gap that had formed until the VA can recognize what the veteran needs and get them the resources that they need. There was a gap. So we say that we fill the gap between what that veteran or that soldier actually needs and what the VA will provide, or hopefully eventually will provide. So we started this chapter. We cover an area in Western North Carolina. If you draw a line between Winston-Salem and Charlotte and kind of draw a straight line, everything west of there, and actually we have several members in upstate South Carolina as well, because there's no chapter in that area either. So I worked with the 82nd Airborne Association, of which we are a member, and got the list of every association member that had ever lived in this area, got their address. We sent out over 300 letters before we even formed the chapter to see if there was an interest. We saw that there was an interest and a need, so we formed this chapter, and it's an all-airborne chapter, which means we don't limit just to 82nd Airborne paratroopers. We go back to those paratroopers from the 101st Airborne Division, the 173rd Airborne Division, the 509th Airborne Rangers, the Ranger Regiments, Special Forces, anyone who has ever served on jump status or completed airborne school or served in the 82nd Airborne Division, whether stateside or overseas, whether they were a paratrooper or not, are eligible to join. Right now we have a little over 60 members in our chapter, and again, we are all over Western North Carolina. We have our meetings in Western North Carolina, but we rotate them around to try to get close to where our members are located. But we feel that we serve an important need here in Western North Carolina. The mission of the St. Michael's All Airborne chapter is to help mainly paratroopers, but any veteran that needs help, that has kind of slipped through the crack. If they're wounded, disabled, homeless, jobless, or in any type of need, we seek them out. And if no other organization has helped them, and there are a lot out there that haven't been helped, we help them. One way we do this is to reach out to all the veteran services officers in Western North Carolina. There are 50 counties in Western North Carolina, and each one of them either has their own veteran service officer or multiple veteran services officers, or they're a member of a multi-county veteran services officer for some of the less densely populated. So we reach out to each one of those and say, look, if you have someone who's a veteran, who's a paratrooper, or any veteran that's fallen through the cracks, send them to us. They're, of course, due to privacy laws, they're not allowed to give us their names, but they can tell them of our chapter that it's available for them to give them help. So when we're contacted by a former paratrooper or a veteran who slipped through the cracks, the first thing we do is go visit them. We have a vetting checklist to make sure the veteran is who he says he is, and that he does qualify for our services. And we quite frankly, we ask him what support he's getting now. Is he getting help from the VA? Is he getting help, he or she getting help from other veterans organizations? What is their family doing to help them? Is there a real need for us to step in and help? Because that's important, because we operate on donations and fundraising events. So we want to make sure that we get the biggest bang for the buck and help those who are truly deserving of need. And there are plenty out there. I will tell you that we've helped a number of veterans, but I will tell you we've only scratched the surface. There are many out there, and we're looking for paratroopers and veterans to help. And I'll clarify the difference there. You know, we're, as an all-airborne chapter, our primary mission is to help paratroopers. But if we come across another veteran who has slipped through the cracks, the first thing we will do is work with the Veteran Services Officer to see what their situation is. Is there another organization out there that is more fitting? For example, we had a Marine that was referred to us by a Veteran Services Officer, and I immediately called the Marine Corps League of the county that Marine lives in, and they stepped up to the plate and took care of it right away. So but if we see any veteran that needs help that slipped through the cracks, if our chapter deems that it's appropriate to help them, we don't just limit to paratroopers. So we feel that we fill an important gap here that's been created. We've provided a lot of help for veterans across western North Carolina, and actually at least one outside the state of North Carolina. One particular veteran that comes in mind is a young man named Brian Barnes, who was an Iraq and Afghanistan veteran of the 101st Airborne Division. He's from Morganton, North Carolina. He served his country honorably and well. When he returned from his deployments, he got out and returned to his hometown in western North Carolina. Unbeknownst to him, he had been afflicted with something called burn pit vapors. He was exposed to burn pits in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he started developing symptoms that he didn't know what was wrong with him. He actually had a heart attack before he was diagnosed properly by the Veterans Administration and the local medical community. But he developed leukemia. When we found out about him from one of the Veteran Services officers, he was about to go to Duke Hospital through the VA to receive bone marrow transplant as well as chemotherapy, which really knocks you down if you've ever experienced something like that or know someone who's had that. While the VA was paying for his medical bills, there were a lot of things that they weren't reimbursing him for. His mother had to take off from work for 3.5 months. She had to take FMLA, which is unpaid leave, to go down there and care for him because he was both an inpatient and an outpatient. So her costs weren't paid for by the VA. We rented him an apartment. He had lost about 60 pounds due to his leukemia. So we bought him new sets of clothes. We gave him food cards, bought him food for he and his mother to subsist on, paid for gas money for them to go back and forth between their apartment in Durham and Duke Hospital, and all of those costs that are associated with living day to day. Plus his mother was staying there. She still had bills back in Morganton or Valdez where she lived. So she, you know, someone had to step up and help her as well. She's a hard-working lady, but when you go out on unpaid leave, there's a gap that's formed. So we looked after him for the 100 days that he was at Duke Hospital. When he got out of Duke, we fought to get him 100% disability, which he deserved from the Veterans Administration. And we worked through several congressmen. My wife Tracy wrote letters and spearheaded a letter writing effort to Congressman Meadows, who was at that time was over his district, and both of our state senators here. And to their credit, they stepped up to the plate and they engaged the Veterans Administration and worked. It took time, but we brought him up from the 60% disability that he was currently at to 100% because he couldn't work, had no visible means of income. But in the meantime, he had to have a place to live. He had been living when he returned from the military service with his mother, and he had actually been sleeping on the sofa. She had another child that was living with her, and so we found him an apartment, a rent-controlled apartment. We went out for we put messages out to the community that we needed furniture, appliances, so we fully furnished his apartment, put all new appliances or good used appliances in, and got him set up in his apartment. And we actually paid his rent for 4 or 5 months through the help of local people who volunteered to help and donated to our chapter. My wife Tracy and I kind of adopted Brian. He became very close to us. Unfortunately, he ended up passing away from his ailment, but he taught me a lot about how to die. He died gracefully. He never blamed the military for anything, but he taught me how to die gracefully. I need a second here. Sorry. But Brian was one of our, I say he became the face of our chapter because he is what we're here to do. We've helped many other veterans in Western North Carolina. One, for example, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a grief counselor or anything like that, but one Sunday afternoon I had a call from a veteran who was actually very close to our chapter, and he told me that he was considering committing suicide. So that, I knew enough from my training in the military to keep him on the phone and keep talking with him and kind of talked him off the ledge, but I knew he wasn't quite there yet. So I immediately called several counselors that are available to us in Western North Carolina to get him help, and they immediately reached out to him and brought him back from that precipice that he was standing on, and brought him back, and he's thriving now. I'm sure he's still sometimes in a dark place, as many veterans are, but we were very proud to get him help, and that's one reason it was very special for us to team up with the West family for this road race because of their situation with their son David and him committing suicide, taking his own life. And there are still 22 veterans a day, and that, to me, that's a conservative estimate because those are the numbers that the VA knows about that takes their own lives. So there are probably more than that, and suicide is on the rise in the active military right now. You would think with deployments going down, suicide would be going down, but it's not the case. Suicides are still rising in the military, so this problem is not going away. Some other things that we've done in our chapter, we've discovered disabled veterans that need help. For example, we had one 100% disabled paratrooper who was getting by, but his wife developed a rare lung disease, and we paid for her treatment at the Lung Institute, and we paid for several treatments that actually kept her alive. She had to have them about once a quarter because fluid built up in her lungs, and she started more or less drowning if she didn't receive this specialized treatment. And it wasn't available through Medicare, Medicaid, the VA system. It was because it was so specialized. So we stepped up and helped pay for that treatment and to pay for their costs. I could go on and on telling you about veterans we've helped, and we're very proud of what we've done to fill the gap between what the VA provides and what these veterans actually need. But we know that we've only scratched the surface. There are so many veterans out there that need help, and we're committed to helping them. Some current projects that the chapter is working on, one immediate need that needs to be filled is the young man Brian Barnes, who our chapter kind of adopted and looked out for, has a young daughter, just turned 15 years old daughter, who's very bright, super intelligent, very active, and the Veterans Administration and the government will take care of her college tuition when it comes time for her to go to college. But what they don't take care of are all of those expenses related with college, room and board, clothing, transportation, taking care of her day-to-day needs. So we are committed to, and we promised Brian before he passed away that we would ensure that she gets through college and gets all her needs taken care of. So we're in the process of setting up a trust fund. We've had several donors who are helping us with that, but we still have a need. We've got a goal of $20,000 to set up in a trust fund for her when she's ready for college. Another project that we just finished with, we actually went outside of our geographical area a little bit. If you remember the Houston or the Texas freeze that happened this past winter, and we had power was out for several days. Well, we discovered a veteran through one of our chapter members who actually moved to Texas, that there was a veteran who was a retired military guy who had fallen on hard times, and he had 4 children at home, wife and 4 children, and his pipes had frozen and burst, and his apartment was flooded. He had to get repairs made, and he just didn't have the money. So we stepped up, even though he was in Texas. We contacted the airborne chapter there to make sure it was okay for us to step into their area, and they welcomed us and they actually helped us take care of this veteran. So that was another project that we recently took care of. But we've got several ongoing assistance projects with veterans in Western North Carolina. One phenomenon that we're seeing right now is that with all the demand for housing and construction and everything, a lot of veterans who need things done to their houses that aren't able to do that can't find contractors. So we use our network of people to find them a contractor and probably a little bit of money to help them with their projects, since most of them are disabled. We've also come across several veterans who have moved to this area, paratroopers particularly, that are in need of a job. So we use our network of veterans in our chapter and other veterans organizations that we partner with to help them find a job, and we actually use money to help keep them on their feet while they're in the job search process. So we've got a lot of irons in the fire. We've reached out to every veteran services officer and told them what our chapter does, and they know that we're here. So if they find a veteran that needs help, I get a phone call, and sometimes it's in the middle of the night because there may be someone who needs immediate assistance. So we're there to help paratroopers and veterans. The proceeds from this race will be used to help veterans. Every nickel that this race generates will go to help veterans, whether it's on the St. Michael's All Airborne chapter side or the Stop Soldier Suicide side. Our chapter particularly takes great pride in paying all of our overhead out of pocket from our members' pockets. So we have zero overhead, we have zero salaries, we pay all our own expenses internally, so every nickel that we generate that our donors and our sponsors provide to us through this race will go to help veterans. And I know it's the same on Stop Soldier Suicide. They're a nationwide organization which is based in Western North Carolina, but I will tell you that I have encountered several veterans in this area who have credited being alive today for what Stop Soldier Suicide is doing. So the West family that we're teaming up with and the St. Michael's All Airborne chapter are going to put every nickel that we make to helping soldiers, particularly in Western North Carolina. You can contact us through our website, which is now shown at the bottom of the screen. We also have a Facebook page. Just do a search for St. Michael's All Airborne chapter. My phone number is out there. Just give me a call day and night if you want to contact us, especially if you have a veteran or a paratrooper that you know that may need our help, because we're here for them.
Here we go, all the way, gotta be rough and tough, bo diddly, have you heard?
Bo diddly, have you heard?
We're gonna jump from a big iron bird.
We're gonna jump from a big iron bird.
Stand up, hook up, shuffle to the door.
Stand up, hook up, shuffle to the door.
And you leap right out and count to 4.
Leap right out and count to 4.
If my main don't open wide,
If my main don't open wide,
I got a reserve by my side.
I got a reason.